They called it the Wild West for a reason. As America expanded westward and settled the untamed territories, the frontier became a tumultuous and lawless land. Shootouts were a common occurrence, and outlaws held sway in small towns and makeshift villages. Bank robberies, saloon brawls, and a variety of gambling problems were everyday challenges for pioneers. Beyond Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid, there were more strange, scandalous, and shocking stories to come out of the frontier than you ever knew. From little-known Civil War skirmishes to supposed UFO sightings, even tales of crazed cannibals, the frontier had it all. In this compilation, we will explore the most remarkable stories from the days of the Old West. So let's prepare to saddle up and embark on this historical journey. Remember to hit the like button because it helps us a lot. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to not miss the upcoming interesting videos. Cowboys saw aliens. We often associate alien abduction stories and UFO sightings with recent times, assuming they are a product of the rapid technological advancements of the past century. However, the truth is that claims of UFO sightings date back centuries, and they were surprisingly common, even in the Wild West. One of the most intriguing reports of aliens in the western frontier emerged in 1896. In the frontier town of Lodi, California, a Civil War veteran and journalist named H.G. Shaw claimed he and a buddy saw a group of extraterrestrials. According to Shaw, who wrote about the incident in the local newspaper, the otherworldly characters were 7 feet tall and very slender with small hands, fingers without nails, and feet twice as long as normal, and functioned similar to a monkey's feet. Shaw didn't stop at the physical description. He also offered a theory about the purpose of the aliens' visits. Those we beheld were inhabitants of Mars, Shaw wrote in the Lodi News Sentinel, who have been sent to Earth for the purpose of securing one of its inhabitants. Shaw's supposed sighting wasn't the only unsettling UFO event out west. A year after the Lodi incident, residents of the small town of Aurora, Texas, reported witnessing cigar-shaped flying saucers soaring high above their heads. And a few months later after that, the town's rattled citizens even claimed that a UFO allegedly slipped from the heavens and exploded in the middle of town. While skeptics attributed it to a meteorite, rumors of an alien visit persisted amongst the townsfolk for years. It seems that life in the remote western towns gave rise to many intriguing sightings, whether they were the result of isolation and boredom or genuine UFO interactions remains a mystery. However, the most famous alien event in the West occurred much later in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, long after the days of the Wild West. Even more recently, the phenomenon of the Marfa Lights has captured our fascination with extraterrestrial phenomena. Clearly, the frontier has always been a place of suspicious space sightings, then and now. Crazed cannibals roamed Nevada. To hear native tribes around modern-day Nevada tell it, there existed in the past a group of red-haired giants who once roamed the regions. These giants instilled fear among local native communities thousands of years ago. For generations, the Northern Paiute tribe has preserved stories about these alleged giants, known as the Ka. According to Paiute lore, this tribe of giants had a reputation for cannibalism, and the Paiute claimed the cannibal group used to eat a fibrous water plant that helped turn their hair the fiery color. Subsequently, they engaged in hunting humans throughout the high desert areas of the Old West long before the arrival of Eastern settlers. Fortunately, the Paiute eventually put an end to these terrifying encounters. Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins, a Northern Paiute tribal activist and archivist, recounts that Paiute warriors successfully trapped all members of the Ka clan inside a vast dark cave. The Paiute then set fire to the cave's entrance. The cannibals perished inside, never to be heard from again. According to Hopkins, Paiute elders have passed down stories of this triumph over the giants for many generations. My people say that the tribe we exterminated had reddish hair, Hopkins wrote in a book about Paiute customs. I have a dress which has been in our family for a great many years, trimmed with the reddish hair. It's called a mourning dress, and no one has such a dress but my family. Despite the longevity of this legend, modern historians and folklorists think it's likely there actually was a tribe in the area for whom red hair was a common genetic hand-me-down. However, they almost certainly weren't giants. Rather, they may have been slightly taller than the average members of neighboring tribes. Nonetheless, this legend has become an integral part of Paiute heritage. From their perspective, Nevada was once inhabited by angry and very hungry giants. Gamblers put modern wagering to shame. From the ever-present attraction of Las Vegas to the rise of online sports betting in more recent times, gambling has always been a part of American life. This gambling tradition also thrived in the days of the Old West, and in many ways, that's just how things were. You had to be something of a gambler at heart to strike out west in the first place. Those who embarked on the perilous journey westward were essentially gambling with their lives, given the myriad dangers they faced along the way. So by the time people got out west, it was well understood that they were already feeling lucky. And as they arrived, it was only natural to pass the time by playing cards, often undertaking as a means of earning a livelihood. Gambling was such a regular part of life in the Old West that it was an esteemed job. Like doctors, saloon keepers, lawmen, and other business owners, card sharks, and other gamblers were won esteem for their work. Throughout the Western expanse, high-stakes gambling games with the prospects of substantial winnings drew dedicated gamblers who made a living traversing from one town to another, seeking their fortune at the card table. Some gamblers resorted to cheating and shady schemes to win against unsuspecting locals. Then they would take their winnings and quickly skip town before they could be caught. In California, professional gambling practically assumed the status of a cultural phenomenon during the 19th century. Card players from various corners of the country journeyed there to showcase their skills in exchange for monetary rewards. Ultimately, California evolved into a destination in its own right for those men who sought to explore the untamed frontier while making their living through gambling. The American Civil War and the Battle of Glorieta Pass. Ask any American about the Civil War and they'll tell you about battles that raged up and down the eastern seaboard, such as Gettysburg, Antietam, Charleston, and Sherman's infamous march through Georgia. But was the war limited to just the Eastern Front? Not quite. Surprisingly, a significant Civil War skirmish took place far out west, in New Mexico, to be exact. And it was one of the most important battles of the entire war, particularly concerning the western expansion of the United States. In the late March of 1862, New Mexico was a wild backcountry full of untamed land. But the northern part of the area gave settlers access to southern Colorado's mountainous regions, promising lucrative mining opportunities in the Rocky Mountains. Moreover, control over New Mexico provided unrestricted access to California. Despite its considerable distance from the Deep South's cotton plantations, New Mexico held strategic significance in the context of slavery's future. Both the Union and the Confederacy knew this. Although neither side had a substantial military presence in the far west, both understood the imperative nature of claiming this land. Hence, on March 26, 1862, the Battle of Glorieta Pass commenced. It only involved about 2,500 soldiers, but it turned out to be a decisive early moment in the Civil War. Initially, the Texas Confederates seemed victorious, nearly annihilating a contingent of Union fighters. However, several days of fierce combat followed, culminating in a daring maneuver by the New Mexico Volunteers. Gaining the high ground by surprise, they got the angle on a large group of now defenseless Texans down below. The Union won the bloody battle and, of course, a few years later, the war. While seldom discussed in modern history books, the Battle of Glorieta Pass marked a crucial turning point in the Civil War. Had the Texans claimed this territory, the Confederacy might have expanded westward, potentially invading Arizona and seizing Mexican land. Then, with no opposition, they'd have rolled right through to California. Its coastline would have given them an endless array of options for seaports and shipping lanes. One can only speculate about the alternate course of history had it not been for the brave stand in the highlands of New Mexico in 1862. The Sutton-Taylor feud. The infamous Hatfield and McCoy families, renowned for their feuding along the Kentucky-West Virginia border, were not the sole feuding clans of the olden days. In fact, the Wild West had a feud that went even further than that infamous incident. Following the conclusion of the Civil War, the state of Texas witnessed a bitter rivalry between two families, the Suttons and the Taylors. The feud's origins trace back to 1866 when Buck Taylor fatally shot an ally of the Suttons. Tensions escalated further within the deaths of Buck Taylor and Dick Chisholm in 1868, stemming from a disastrous horse sale. Remaining Taylor family members staunchly defended their honor, fueled by Southern pride and resentment over the Confederacy's defeat in the Civil War. Meanwhile, the Suttons garnered support from local Texas militias and state police organizations actively involved in Reconstruction efforts. By 1869, William Sutton, the patriarch of the Sutton family, had assumed control of the police, leading raids across the state to root out cattle rustlers sympathetic to the Taylors. Over the next 5 years, all of DeWitt County, Texas, was plunged into a horrifically violent feud. Even members of other families found themselves compelled to choose sides between the Suttons and Taylors, knowing that failing to pledge allegiance risked their lives. Tragically, those who did take sides were also subjected to deadly skirmishes and senseless violence. By 1874, the staggering death toll in DeWitt County prompted the intervention of the Texas Rangers. They labored for months to mediate the conflict, but found limited success. However, as 1875 drew to a close, the feud began to wane, not due to effective negotiation, but rather because many of the most aggressive and brutal participants on both sides had met their demise. The subsequent years still witnessed several violent murders, but the rate gradually subsided. By the late 1870s, the Taylor family had lost at least 22 members, whereas the Suttons had seen 13 of their own perish. Numerous friends and allies on each side had also fallen victim to the senseless violence. For the next 2 decades, Texas courts struggled in vain to untangle the legal ramifications stemming from the feud. It wasn't until the close of the 19th century that most family members and allies were finally able to put the painful chapter behind them and move forward. The Crash at Crush. William Crush, a railroad executive known for his flair for the dramatic, sought to ignite Americans' enthusiasm for rail travel at the close of the 19th century. In 1894, as he looked to secure financing for a new railroad venture known as the Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad Company, or the Katy for short, Crush decided to think on a grand scale. To promote this new rail line, Crush organized an extravagant carnival in a temporary Texas town that he amusingly named after himself. However, this was no ordinary carnival. Its centerpiece was a spectacle involving the collision of 2 immense 35-ton train engines intended to demonstrate the railroad's incredible power. Such events passed for entertainment in the Old West, and surprisingly, it was an overwhelming success from both a financial and personal perspective, except for the unfortunate individuals who lost their lives in the tragic train crash. On the day of the planned train collision, Crush was temporarily the second largest city in all of Texas. Over 40,000 people flocked to the area from various locations. True to his word, Mr. Crush set 2 steam-powered trains hurtling toward each other on the tracks at speeds well exceeding 50 miles per hour. The ensuing collision resulted in a colossal explosion that sent plumes of steam, fire, and train wreckage soaring into the sky. Tragically, 2 individuals lost their lives in the catastrophic blast, and hundreds more sustained injuries. However, this dramatic event succeeded in captivating thousands of spectators, persuading them of the railroad's immense capabilities. One eyewitness, J.C. Dean, who lost an eye in the accident, received a $10,000 compensation from Crush's Katy Railroad Company. The railroad's overseers were horrified at William Crush's antics and fired him after learning about the deadly collision. Nevertheless, days later, as they observed the substantial public attention garnered by the shocking event, they swiftly rehired Crush and asked for more. It just goes to show that even way back then, no publicity was bad publicity. Whiskey in the Old West. In addition to gambling, whiskey held an irresistible allure for frontier inhabitants. But the whiskeys that were offered up for consumption at the time weren't exactly things you'd want to drink today. The names alone hinted at their wild nature. 40 rods, tarantula juice, Taos lightning, and an array of exotic-sounding concoctions were prevalent in the Wild West. These spirits were not for the faint of heart, as they were astonishingly potent and often contained ingredients that are unimaginable in today's context, including deadly toxins like strychnine. Some of these liqueurs even featured substances like turpentine and tobacco oil. For many people, drinking the first shot required them to purchase a second shot just to wash down and forget about the first. If they could stomach it literally, the drinker would be so far gone after a couple of rounds that they'd forget what they were drinking and drift off into a chemical-induced slumber, only to repeat the process the following day. From a logistical perspective, this should have come as no surprise. After all, Western saloons were often few and far between. The distances between towns were vast, and the logistics and supply lines were inconsistent at best. Moreover, the absence of regulations governing food and beverages in the 19th century West allowed saloon proprietors to exercise creative freedom in their concoctions. Sometimes they got a little too creative. Nevertheless, it consistently added an element of intrigue to the drinking experience. Would you drink a shot or two of strychnine or turpentine to get drunk? Just be thankful the Old West has already been won, and you'll never have to answer that question. Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.